Hey, what's up everyone? The election was yesterday and the results came in this morning, and needless to say, many people are struggling with their emotions, with their anxieties, with their fears. I wanted to create this video here on the heels of the election to kind of talk about what we can do with all of that, especially as we're settling in for 4 more years of a Trump presidency that just runs the whole gamut of emotions. So I want to talk through what we can do with that today. I do want to say at the outset, I recognize that I'm coming from a place of privilege when it comes to this conversation. I'm neurotypical, I'm straight, I'm Christian. There's a lot of factors that work against me seeing potentially some of the blind spots and the fears that people might have justifiably about this administration and how they view their futures and the future of their family. So these are just some of the suggestions I might have for somebody who's dealing with what feels like a crisis that's a lot bigger than they are, that they don't have a lot of control over, and that is on a national and global scale. The first thing I want to say is that I want to validate those emotions, and especially for people as individuals, it's important for us to validate our own emotions. A lot of times we might think like, oh, I just gotta pretend like I'm not upset, put on a brave face, or be positive about things. And sometimes that's just not helpful. And so validating our own feelings is important. Doing that work internally to recognize I am feeling anxious or I am feeling disappointed. Maybe I believe that this country is not what I thought it was or what I was taught to expect. I think the first and most important thing is to own those emotions and own those beliefs that we're thinking that way and feeling that way, and to be able to name that for ourselves. And some people are taking to social media to do that. I have mixed feelings on social media in terms of kind of this public grieving or processing, which I'll talk about here in a couple minutes. But in terms of an internal process, definitely that part is important, whether it's journaling, whether it's talking through that with somebody, whether it's a therapist or a trusted friend. Just being able to own that I am feeling and thinking this way can be really helpful in accepting that this is the situation and moving on to something more productive. And so the second thing that I would encourage is to reach out to community or find support. I mean, that's part of why I have Kitty on this channel in the first place, is that animals are a great source of non-judgmental support. But this is where I have a problem with doing a lot of this public stuff on social media when it comes to like people posting angrily or in disbelief, where there is a period of time where it's helpful to acknowledge this is how I'm feeling, that this is how this makes me feel. But there's a difference between recognizing the anger that you might feel and stewing in it, which social media tends to encourage. A lot of the issues about echo chambers, cutting people off who don't think the same way as you, so you just end up with like-minded individuals all sharing the same messages. That part, I feel like, after you have your initial period of recognizing your emotions, may be not as helpful, because what happens with that is that you get a bunch of these like-minded people, and this happens in support groups sometimes and therapy groups sometimes. People end up over confirming that you should feel this way, you should continue feeling this way, and that becomes unhelpful if you were trying to continue moving on with your life and not trying to make whatever emotion you feel as part of your life going forward. Another aspect of the social media piece is that because you have so many potential opinions flooding in and so many different takes, it can make us feel even more out of control, which is a lot of the core of what a lot of people, I imagine, are feeling right now, that they feel like I voted, I posted stuff on social media telling people to vote, talking about stuff with people on social media, and then in the end it didn't make any difference on the national stage. And that is a very defeating feeling, and that's why I would think social media is not super helpful in terms of processing and coping with the emotions that we might be feeling at this point in time. So the 2 steps so far, I would say, acknowledge for yourself what you're feeling, write it down, label it, name it for yourself. That can be very powerful. Second thing is to find community in person, in conversation, whether it's talking specifically about how you all are feeling, or whether it's just being with somebody and doing something completely different. That can be helpful as well, finding community and connection with other people, offline if possible. The third thing I would say is get connected with the larger community. And this might seem counterintuitive when we're talking about the large community of the country and how you might feel let down by that right now. What I'm talking about is doing something like volunteering within your local community. This is a space where it allows us to get outside of ourselves, get outside of our own fears and insecurities and doubts, to be able to go and serve somebody else, to see that my actions can make a difference in the local community, whether it's serving at a homeless shelter, volunteering at the local library, or doing a blood drive or anything like that. That's a way to serve and be able to get outside of our own fears and our own feelings to feel connected with other people in a way that doesn't have to be political. It can also lead to more of a sense of agency, that doing something like this that's community oriented, that's a service, means that I can make a difference. And it changes the scale of where I'm thinking. A lot of the concern that researchers have about social media is that everything becomes so interconnected. We get news about Israel, about the US, about Russia and Ukraine all the time, and it makes us feel very small in comparison. Like, what can one person do about these global crises and global concerns? And so by volunteering at the community level, we can feel connected in a sense of agency, and it changes the scale of our concern to what do my neighbors need? And that can be super helpful for feeling a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning. And that's one of the things that is really key in all of this. When I talk to my clients who are struggling with potentially what could be existential crises or just feeling out of control of the world around you, is referring to the idea of meaning that researchers have talked about, that humans in the direst circumstances can still survive, can still thrive because they found meaning. And that when humans have meaning, have purpose, we can do a lot with that. We can overcome a lot of obstacles with that. And so one of the ways that we can make meaning is by serving others, getting outside of ourselves. A lot of times it's very difficult for my clients to manufacture a sense of meaning for themselves. We can talk all day about like, oh, you know, my purpose is to be a student, or my purpose is to be the best parent I can be, or the best spouse I can be, or the best employee I can be. But really, a lot of meaning comes from that community and connectedness that we have with our local community. And it's not so much intrinsically generated, at least in my experience. And it's hard to generate that for ourselves unless we are going out and doing. And so that's why I encourage that community involvement, that local level engagement, whether it's just going to events like a local concert in town, or being active in your local spiritual community, or volunteering someplace. Those are ways that we derive a sense of meaning and purpose from the group that we are engaged with. And that is what can lead to a sense of encouragement, a sense of agency, and changing the scale of our concern to, hey, this is actually something I can make a difference with. And this is something that I am in control of, how I choose to serve, how I choose to spend my time, how I choose to invest in the people and the groups around me. So those are the steps that I would recommend. Acknowledge how you're feeling, find some community around you, create a sense of connection and investment in your local community, and then using all of that, find some meaning or purpose in the midst of what feels like a meaningless time or a hopeless time. Like I said earlier, I have a lot of blind spots when it comes to this. I have some of the privileges of being insulated from some of what the Trump administration might do, and I don't know what their policies are going to be going forward. So I'm not going to try to project out or try to reason with you all to say that, oh, you know, system of checks and balances, or just that presidents don't do that much in and of themselves. I don't know how any of that is going to shake out. And at the end of the day, this is not an argument about rationality. This is an argument about fear that people have. This is an emotional conversation that we're having. And so that's why I'm talking about these different steps of being able to address the emotional content of what we're feeling, validating some of that, and then being able to find community and meaning through the midst of that. So I hope this all is helpful. Even if it wasn't, I hope Kitty being here was at least helpful too in that regard. Please do like and subscribe. That helps the channel to grow, helps us to address current situations like this. And again, thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you all next time.